Hello, welcome to Gamer Ghost. This is Gamer Ghost Dad, and today I wanted to do a different kind of video. I am currently going through my big pile of consoles that I need to refurb and get things done on, and I'm currently working through Dreamcasts. As part of that, I have a lot of what they call the VA0 revision Dreamcasts that require quite a few mods. One of the more common mods, regardless of the VA0, that you need to do if you have a Dreamcast and you haven't done it before, is to update your controller port. And the updates I would recommend you do, there's one thing you for sure want to do, is replace the fuse, which will go off when you short out a controller. You'll be wondering, why in the world is my controller port no longer working? This fuse is usually it. So we want to replace that with a resettable fuse. So the fuse I have is a polyfuse self-resetting type 0.48 amp. I picked this up from Console 5. I recommend you do the same. They always will make sure that you get the right kind of part with the right quality. And also, as part of this, we want to do a mod where we can use regular CRC 2032 batteries rather than the rechargeable battery, which at this point is probably just plain bad. These are pretty easy to replace. The power draw is pretty low if you're leaving your Dreamcast plugged in, or you can always pull it out if you're going to put it away for a while. But that's another mod we want to do. I'm also going to replace the LED with a cool RGB rotating light. As part of the battery mod, we're going to add a diode that'll prevent the power that would normally be charging the battery into going into the battery. So this diode's going to stop it. So I'm going to walk through the process, and again, just to share, the diode is a 200 milliamp, 30 volt, 5 amp, 5A IFSM. Again, this is from Console 5. You can look up Dreamcast diode and they're going to get you the right kind that you need. But this is what I'm currently using for this setup. Now, I'm also going to replace the cap, but I'm a big believer if it's not broken, don't worry about it. This cap actually looks really good. I don't see any major issues. But if you're in here, it may be something you just want to do to get done and out of the way. The VA0 does not work with the VA1 and the VA2.1. This only works with the VA0. You'll notice that the fan plug is a little bit different. You cannot use the Noctua fan mod that you usually see. There is another mod that you might do if you had a VA1 with the controller port that was different. You might add a resistor to allow the fans to work correctly. But on this one, we're actually going to keep the fans because it's a really cool kind of heat pipe situation here where the heat is piped straight to a block by the fan. The fans are pretty good. They just need to be cleaned with a little bit of lubricant, and then they sound pretty quiet. But the VA0s are well liked for this heat pipe setup and considered very reliable. So they're a good candidate to convert into my US-based consoles, and I'll be talking about the other mods that need to happen for that. But let's get started on this. I have my absolutely amazing Hakko FR301. This thing has been life-changing. Just how well it works compared to my other pump. It did the job, but it just took a lot of work. So let's start by removing all our components, and then we'll work on putting the new components. So get ready to hear the moo of the Hakko FR301. Some of these have a little bit of bend, and you want to be careful because you don't want to rip off the pads when you're removing it. So just use some caution as you remove things, and if it doesn't want to go, don't make it go. Hit it again with like I'm going to actually hit it again here. Hit it again with the gun. Now we're actually going to save this resistor. reuse it. Some kits will actually have a brand new resistor to replace with this. I find that, again, they use pretty high quality components, so we're going to reuse that. Next up, let's get the battery. Okay, that looks pretty good. So, battery should just kind of rock out. Set this down. Again, if you need to hit it again, don't feel bad about doing so, because you do not want to rip those pads out. Alright, let's get our LED and then the fuse. So the LED is right here, the fuse is right here, and then we'll get our capacitor, which is right here. Okay. Let's get this LED. For whatever reason, the LED might tend to have a problem with the pads. This one looks like it went really well. Some bonus moves for you there. Has some other components beside it. I'm pretty sure these are the two leads we need. Some of these bends, I'm going to do the same thing, so I can't judge too much here. The main thing is just making sure it's free of the connection of the solder. You can usually tell by rocking it back and forth, and it'll start to come out. Alright, well, that's interesting how that's done. Okay, so you can see we got all the components removed. I'm actually going to turn off Haku and turn on my soldering iron, and let's start getting these things in place. So let's start with the battery mod, and there's only one way you can go. You'll see that it has the plus on the front side. I'll kind of rotate that in the light, see if you can see it a little bit better. There we go. And it's like this. The battery terminals kind of have a square shape, which can be annoying getting into the terminals. But once they're in, you should be able to push them in, and they kind of hold on their own, so that is kind of nice. Okay, I mentioned that we were going to reuse the existing resistor by the battery, so we are still going to do that. What I'm going to do is cut off some of the edge here, and this is where it gets tricky because you're not really attached to anything yet. So the diode, there's a black side to it here. That is going to go down in the frontmost hole where we removed the resistor. So let's go ahead and put that there. As I mentioned, this gets a little tricky. We might actually solder this first. solder the other things. Then we'll come back and do our, put this more in the middle where you can see. We'll do the rest here. Okay, I'm gonna add a little flux. Good. Let's take our existing or our previous resistor, and so resistors don't have a positive or negative, they just go in. But let's go ahead and put this in here. Now on this side, what I'm going to do gently rotate this over, and I'm just going to take my diode, which has a much longer lead here, wrap it around a couple times. Going to solder that as well. And just make sure we have really good connection. So there we go. That should be it for the battery mod. Let me give a little pressure on this. Now let's do our light. So the light, you'll see there's a and a K on the board. The A is your anode, and it will be for the longer LED, or the longer lead on the LED, which is the positive. So we'll put that in. Puppy over so we can solder, and then let's go ahead and put in our resettable fuse, which also doesn't have a positive or negative. I do like to put the text facing where it's viewable though. Let's go ahead and take our capacitor. So as you're looking at this, you see the white line. The white line is negative, and that's usually to remember, because your capacitor also has a big white stripe with a big negative on it. And the other way you can tell is your capacitor has a long lead and a short lead. The long lead is positive, the short lead is negative. So that's how you can tell positive, negative on most components, including capacitors. It's kind of a weird setup where they have 3 holes, but they only went into the middle, the first two. Alright, let's do this. Careful not to bridge anything. Just kind of keep an eye on it. If you do, there's not a lot that flux, and a little bit of solder braid if you need it. Copper braid. Can't fix. Make sure everything looks okay. And that's it. We're done. Now we can trim our pieces and give everything a little bit of a cleaning. And then we'll see about testing our board just to see how everything worked out. So let me find what I did with my cutters. Now, one thing, a bit of advice, again, lessons learned, be careful when you're lifting and clipping your pads. You don't want to lift as you're clipping and then take off, lift the pad that it's on. And this older electronics, especially things that are dealing with power, they're under a lot of stress. So you just want to be thoughtful and careful. Not do something where you're having to clean up a mess and straighten out a torn pad. And that is why they say to wear glasses or goggles, because stuff does fly if you don't keep a hand on it. Okay. Alright, there we go. So we replaced the LED. We removed the rechargeable battery and put in a socket where we can place regular batteries. We replaced the fuse with one that self-resets itself. We replaced the capacitor, the one capacitor that was on this board. And then we installed a diode that will allow us to use our battery without the extra power going to it and accidentally charging it, but also allowing the power from the battery to flow correctly to the Dreamcast through the leads. So, all right. Well, I'm going to take a little pause and get things set up where we can record and see things on the screen, and then I will be right back. All right, I am back, and I think I've got everything set up. A note on this, I have everything out. The power is very exposed. If you were working with the power board, please always exercise the utmost caution. In fact, if you are not an expert used to and understanding the electronics, do not open and mess around with the power of these consoles at all. But you do see I have a Dream PSU installed here, a Pico PSU. I our new board with the LED and the battery installed with the top plus face forward. We have our ribbon cable installed. We have the fan installed. And then one really important for this model of Dreamcast for the VA0, the temperature sensor. This little cable goes to a little temperature sensor that is on the heat pipe that has to be plugged in. Now, in order to go to any type of menu, let me grab a controller real quick here. There's our controller. Let me go ahead and get that plugged in too. In order to boot to the Dreamcast menu, you need to have a GD interfaced item here, GDMU, which we can't use at this point because it needs 3.3 volts, and this console puts 5 volts through that, or the original drive. So I'm going to show you what happens when you start it without the drive, which should just show a Dreamcast screen and not take us to the boot ROM where we have the little menu where you can update to everything. So let's start with that. And I'm going to switch to the other input. Alright, that text is coming from the video out I'm using. And after a few moments, there it is. It has the Dreamcast logo. It didn't boot and have the animation. It just comes to the screen. Now you can see the LED. It's not exactly doing what I want, so I might even switch it out with a different LED. These should be rotating smoothly. This one's almost Christmas light style, so there might have been some different kinds in my LED pile. But it does definitely have a different LED. Now, I'm not hating it. I just kind of like the smooth rotation rather than just the sparkle change. So let's go ahead and turn this off. I do have the power toggle here kind of hooked off. It's off to the side. Again, being very careful around the power. Let's take a drive. This drive has metal all over it, so we need to be very careful not to short anything. And I'm going to go ahead and install the drive. And let's give this a start. Switch to the other interface. Now this drive came with the system. It is a 5-volt drive. The VA1s that we have in America are typically run on 3.3 volts. So something happened there. It went to the boot screen, which means our GDMU is not hooked up all the way or isn't connected properly. So this would actually be done much better with the full shroud on, and I might switch to that if I don't get this to work correctly here in a moment. Aha, I wasn't even really connected. Okay, now I'm connected again. I'm kind of checking to see if make sure I'm not shorting anything out, and let's power up here. Go ahead and switch the input ahead of time. And here we go. There, that's what we should see. It boots into the menu. It's going to ask us for our date and time. I'm going to change something here. And then we're in the menu. So how do we test that this is actually working the way we want to? It's actually pretty simple. Let's just turn the power off. And then let's turn it back on. And what we should see is it does not prompt us for the date and time. And there, it went right into the menu, so that is working properly. Now if you got the diode and the resistor mixed up on this setup, what you would see is it would ask you for the date and time every single time. I've seen some videos where they absolutely have that mixed up. It has to be this direction to work properly. Some other interesting things about this model. I'm going to turn this off for safety. And I'm going to unplug my power source just to be careful. And I'm going to gently lift my board off, my good working drive off. So something else interesting about this, you do not need the fan to be running. As I mentioned, with the sensor the temperature sensor has to be going, but the fan doesn't have to be running for your testing. The board doesn't even have to be connected for your testing. So if I disconnect the board here and I power this on, reconnect my power, again, safety first, and switch my input. What you should see happening, now I don't hear the fan running, I don't see the lights on the board going, but I should boot into the Dreamcast, just the static Dreamcast image. There it is. So that's the minimal viable that you really need to boot a VA0 Dreamcast. Is you need power on the 3.3 volt rail, you need power on the 5 volt rail, you need the temperature sensor connected, and you probably should have some video out so you can see what's going on, and you should at least boot to this screen. And this screen basically is saying the boot ROM ran, and we tried to check on our GDEMU device, and we did not find anything there, so we're just stopping and showing the image. So that's where you want to troubleshoot your connection between the GDEMU, or excuse me, the GD connector drive or GDEMU to make sure everything's there. So, all right, well, I think that was pretty successful. Thanks for joining me on this different video. I appreciate you joining me and watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content. A little different than showing them off my collection, but what I'm really doing behind the scenes is a lot of modding, so I do enjoy sharing what I can. But that is how you handle the VA0 mods for battery, replaceable battery, and the resettable fuse. So I hope that's helpful to you, of those who are looking for information. Thanks, and have an awesome weekend.